Good evening and welcome into the Mafia cast, brought to the fans by the fans, and this is your one-stop shop for all things Bills every single week. Now here are your hosts, Mike Yanni, Ronnie Eastham, and Casey Cita.
Hi, Bill.
Welcome back, Bills Mafia. Welcome to another episode of the Mafia cast. Once again, my camera is not working. I think it might be just time to throw this thing out the window and go get a new one.
Remember when you always made fun of me for having the bad equipment and everything? And yeah, how the turntables turn.
If I had to pick, I think audio is more important than video, but that's okay.
True.
Aaron is back with us today. How you doing, Aaron?
Hey, I'm doing well, man.
That's good. At least your audio and video is working as well.
Yes, you get my video, my office, my little Bills people behind me.
There you go. That's fantastic. I've got some of those sitting on my desk at work.
They live on my shelf with my little Chiefs people. They're all ready for another AFC Championship game.
Here we go. Yeah, it's interesting. You brought that up. I don't know if you probably didn't see it, but I put out a top 10 today, and I based the top 10 player or team rankings. I based it solely on DVOA, EPA per play, turnover differential, point difference, just things that I think are a little more carry a little more weight than just saying, "Hey, I think this team's better than that team."
Yeah,
because those people do that all day long. The Chiefs were outside of my top 10.
Yeah, they are only average so far this season based on DVOA. They have not been great. They've kind of escaped with these two close wins. The problem is, they're better than this, and they managed to get two close wins against important conference opponents, which means they're in the driver's seat. I mean, not the driver's seat, because Houston and Buffalo are 2-0 also, but they're in a good place for tiebreakers,
Yeah, what do you think about that, Casey? I know you made a comment earlier about it.
No, I don't know your point systems, what you arranged to what, so I don't know how I could refute your list. Obviously, come the end of the season, if the Saints are the number one team in the league, that's going to take everybody by shock.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs aren't in the top 10, then everybody's going to assume Patrick Mahomes got hurt, Travis Kelce got hurt, and the season just tanked. So I'm curious to know if you got any of that backlash that I thought you were going to be getting online from it.
Actually, not. No, I didn't.
Really?
I think if you explain to people this is just based on the first two games, not any of our knowledge otherwise, it absolutely makes sense that the Saints are the number one team. And it makes sense that Kansas City is not in the top 10 because they haven't played like a top 10 team in the first two games of the year. The thing is, that's only two games.
Right. And that's kind of going back to the DVOA, the sample size is important. And I think as we continue through the season, that's going to become more accurate. Is that an accurate
Oh, absolutely.
statement?
Yeah. The more sample you have, the more accurate it is. No question. We're very early on. It's easy for a bad team to have two good games. It's hard for a bad team to have two good games as good as what the Saints have done. But it's easy for a bad team to have two good games as good as what the Seahawks have done.
Right. Where do you put the Saints in all of this? Do you think that what we're seeing is what they really are, or is it just 2 weeks of them playing above their heads?
Well, I was driving the Saints bandwagon going into the season because I felt that people thought they suck, when in actuality they are a very average team with an easy schedule, okay? Which means they're going to be a playoff team because they're average with an easy schedule. I'm guessing that their defense is going to fall back to what they usually are. They don't get to play Bryce Young. They don't get to play Bryce Young at all again. But I think their offense is for real with the Clint Kubiak. We knew that it was going to mean something for Clint Kubiak to be hired as the offensive coordinator, and the offense has been super powerful. So I think that their offense, they can absolutely have a top 10 offense. I don't think they're going to end up with a top 10 defense, and they're not going to be this good for the whole season.
It's interesting because when Casey and I were talking about the Saints before the season started when we did our preview, our season prediction episode, and we disagreed on the Saints. I had them winning that division, and kind of a little bit to what you were just saying, that they're in the NFC. That division is there for the taking. They were there at the end of it last year. I do think Carr is a better quarterback than most people say that he is or think that he is. And so far it's coming to fruition. Now, I don't expect them, like you were saying. They're not going to play Carolina every week, so that's not going to happen. I do tend to disagree with you on the defensive part of it. I do think that the Saints defense is going to be pretty good. In fact, if I had to flip-flop it, I would say they're more top 10 in the offense. But, I mean, who knows what's going to happen going forward. But I'm excited to see how my little ranking system kind of starts to take shape as the weeks go.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting season early on. There were a lot of upsets last week. There are a lot of really good teams. I mean, we have the Saints right now as the favorites in the NFC because the good teams in the NFC all lost last week. So they're already a game ahead of everybody else. It's not as much that they've been so good as then they're 2-0. Right? And San Francisco is now 1-1, and Dallas is now 1-1, and Philadelphia is now 1-1, and Green Bay is 1-1, and so it just doesn't. And Detroit lost last week too. So the whole NFC, like all the best teams in the NFC, lost last week.
Yeah, I'm watching that Philadelphia game. The way in which they lost was, I mean, if you're an Eagles fan, heartbreaking. But Casey, what do you think about all this as far as the Saints go? I know that you don't necessarily agree. We'll also want to kind of touch base on the Vikings as well here in a minute. But let's go with the Saints. What do you think about that so far?
I mean, I just saw what the Saints were last year. I mean, they really didn't do much to change their team. You know, they didn't bring anybody in. You know, they let Michael Thomas go. And I'm speaking on the offensive side of the ball right now. I mean, they brought in. I mean, they kept Kamara, Taysom Hill, Olave, Shaheed. But the only difference was Kubiak, and I didn't expect Kubiak to have this much of an impact and change this offense this much. You know, that especially this quick. I mean, their offense was so, you know, vanilla and boring last year, and Kamara was a fantasy stud because it was, all right, is Olave open? No, throw it to Kamara. Is Olave open? No, throw it to Kamara. You know, that was their whole offense. That was all they did, and I didn't expect Kubiak to come out swinging like this. I mean,
but the Saints weren't bad last year. That's the thing. They basically brought back the same team that was very average last year. So it was likely that they were going to just be very average again. So far, they've been better than that.
Right. That's all I was like. I just expected them to be what they were last year, you know, average. You know, I didn't expect them to be the worst team in the league. I didn't expect them to be the Panthers. You know, I don't think anybody thought the Panthers were going to be the Panthers. But
so bad.
No, people thought the Patriots were going to be the Panthers.
Yeah,
this is true. But I didn't expect to see the Saints go into Dallas and beat the dog snot out of the Cowboys. Like nobody expected that. You know, I can't imagine how many people lost in like a pick'em pool last week just because everybody took the Cowboys.
Oh, survivor pools are wrecked. I do a survivor pool, and two-thirds of the entries are out already.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Casey, to answer your question a while ago, as far as the way that I came up with these rankings, it includes DVO rankings for offensive and defense, EPA per play for both, offensive and defensive success rates, turnover, important differentials, win-loss records, and then based on those rankings, I assigned values. Ultimately, I ranked all 32 teams. The Chiefs were just outside of it, 11, I believe, and the Patriots were number 10. So, and the Steelers were in there too. But again, kind of going back to what we said a while ago, and Aaron, you were saying too, it's a small sample size.
Yeah, if you're talking about just the two games, that doesn't sound weird, because if you look at just these two games, The Patriots have played like a slightly above average team, and the Chiefs have not been a top 5 team. Now, I'm betting everybody listening to this wants to know where you have the Bills. I'm betting you have the Bills pretty high.
Yeah, they were number 3. They came
Yeah.
in number 3 overall, behind the Vikings and the Saints.
Yeah, the Vikings have been good early on too. We'll see what happens this week. But the Vikings have been good early on. Beating San Francisco that's a pretty good victory for them.
Yeah, that one was pretty surprising. Okay, so let me ask you, of those 3 teams, the Patriots, Saints, and Vikings, all 3 that are kind of surprising a little bit, which of those 3 do you think is more likely to sustain the success throughout the year?
The Saints.
Oh, 100%.
The Saints are most likely, in part because their schedule is so easy. But I think they're the best of those 3 teams, yes. And before the season, I was higher on the Patriots than the market. Like, I thought the idea that the Patriots were going to be the worst team in the league, given the quality of the players they have on defense, even after trading Judon, did not make sense. That defense is too good to be the worst team in the league because their offense is going to be a little bit better than last year. And they're not going to have the turnovers they had last year. And so they do not seem like a team that's going to win 4 games. They seem like a team that's going to win 6 or 7.
What do you got, Casey?
I mean, we all knew the Panthers were going to be bad. I mean, but nobody expected them to be this bad. I mean, basically their best player on their whole team. That just was basically a nail in the coffin for them. We'll see what Andy Dalton can do. The Patriots, I mean, yeah, I overlooked their defense, but I also didn't expect Jacoby Brissett to honestly be playing as well as he did. Now, has he gone up against superpower, outstanding defenses? No.
Seattle's a pretty good defense this year. They're looking good. Their coverage has been great. I mean, yes, who they've played, but Seattle's coverage has been really good this year. I guarantee you, the Patriots will not go 0-6 in the division.
No,
I don't know which game they'll steal, but they'll steal one game against the teams that are better than them
tonight. And I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised when they beat the Dolphins because they usually split with the Dolphins. I mean that.
Well, and they're going to play the Dolphins with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. So
yeah.
Right. I mean, even when the Patriots had Brady, for some reason, the Dolphins just always beat Brady in Miami. Like, I don't know what it was, if that was his one time a year when he got to go out and party, when they got to go down to Miami or what. But, like, yeah. He had his ice cream, his once a year ice cream. But, yeah, so the Patriots, they'll be okay. The AFC East is going to be very fun to watch because everybody's going to be beating the dog snot out of each other because there's 4 great defenses. Well, no, 3.
No, I think there's 3 pretty good defenses and 1 average defense.
Yeah. So who's your average defense?
It happens to share a locker room with Tyreek Hill.
Yep, that's what I thought you were going to say.
No, I tell you, yeah, it's. I mean, I hope the best for Tua, obviously, but at the same time, it is kind of nice to see that game last week. Talking about surprises, I don't think anybody's necessarily surprised that Buffalo won the game, but in the manner in which they won the game.
They clobbered Miami even before
they did.
They clobbered Miami even before the injury.
Yeah. It wasn't even close. I haven't seen Tua. I haven't seen Tua play that poorly since Brian Flores was the coach.
There were a couple.
That's genuinely what it reminded me of.
He just threw it up for grabs. I mean, you just cannot make throws like that. It's not. Right. You just can't make throws like that.
And he hadn't done that since McDaniels had been here. He had been a lot more cautious from doing that. And then so that's what made me think of Brian Flores. I was like, this looks exactly like the first 2 years of it, or 3 years, whatever it was, of his career. I was like, just throwing the ball up just for the sake of it.
And I don't know what the future holds for Tua health-wise. it's our job to talk about these teams and what they're going to do, which means we have to talk about what the Dolphins are going to be without Tua and whether Tua will come back and when he might come back. And it sounds kind of uncaring about him as a person. Obviously, we all care about him as a person.
Yeah.
And we want him to make the decision that's best for his health, or have the doctors make the decision that's best for his health. But in the meantime, we have to talk about what happens to the Dolphins when Skylar Thompson is the quarterback, and they're just that they're not one of the top two teams in the division anymore.
Now, we did see Skylar Thompson. Go ahead, Ronnie. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to – Skylar Thompson, when last time Tua was hurt, that was when they had to come to Buffalo for the playoffs. He didn't look terrible. I mean, he and the offense hung 31 on the Bills. So do you – how big of a regression do you expect it to be? Because if all of us are saying Tua is just a system quarterback – then should this offense really take that big of a step back? Now, it is the perfect quarterback for the perfect system.
Right, that's the thing. It's Skylar Thompson may be less of a marriage quarterback. He may be not quite as good I would guess not quite as good in the system. I mean, if you see a few games of him playing well, you change your mind. But for the most part, Brock Purdy aside, we don't assume that 7th round picks are as good as 1st round picks. And I don't remember his numbers overall. He may have been good in that one game against Buffalo in the playoffs, but his overall numbers the first time he had to start were not good.
Right. I think it was more so he was just efficient.
Yeah, I don't think he was. He wasn't necessarily terrible, but he certainly wasn't, wowing anybody either. But I was kind of going back while you guys were talking and looking at the overall team DVOAs, and yeah, New Orleans at 91.2%. The next closest was Seattle at 49.9%. So I think just that discrepancy, that wide margin right there, I think should probably tell you that it's probably a little bit on the not so accurate side, and will most likely come down.
Oh yeah, but to start that good, put it this way: the over under in Vegas for New Orleans was 7.5. There has never been a team that started at 70% or more DVOA through the first 2 games that won fewer than 8 games.
Wow.
They're going to go at least 8 and 9.
I'm happy on FanDuel right now. Aaron, thank you. I'll give you 30%.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure their over under number for the season is no longer 7.5.
Right.
It's higher now.
Right.
It's probably 9.5 or something.
I was to say, I guarantee they put it right to 9.5. Make people make that tough decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about the Jaguars? That's a team we haven't mentioned yet. That's your next opponent.
That's true.
Have you gotten to watch any I have not gotten to watch any Jaguars this season.
I haven't watched them either. I did a little bit of so I write for the Buffalo Bills on Sports Illustrated, and I did a piece last night actually about some of the matchups in this game between the Bills. And one of the things that kind of stood out to me was Fabian Walker, I think, is having a little bit better of a season than people will realize. I think it was he's got 8 sacks. I can't remember. He's got a number of tackles on the season, but he's got 2 sacks through the first 2 weeks, a tackle for a loss. The linebacker, which I cannot pronounce his name. Casey, maybe you can.
I got you. Boyesade Aluakan.
Yes. He's got 3 TFLs on the season already as well. I think that's going to be kind of a key matchup in that game is can the Buffalo's offensive line, which has played extremely well through the first couple of games, can they take care and protect Josh Allen on the edges from those guys?
Yeah, Trevon Walker he came alive last year. The first year, he was not anywhere near what you would expect from a number 1 pick. Last year, he was very good. He had a lot of pressures. He's strong against the run, too. He's definitely a good player.
I mean, Trayvon Walker coming out of college, that was the whole discussion. It was he and Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson was the more pro-ready now, but Trayvon Walker was the guy who might have had the higher ceiling.
Yes, and I honestly think the Jags
Aiden Hutchinson's phenomenal. Oh yeah,
I think the Jags made a
Hutchinson's
mistake, and
phenomenal.
I thought at the time that they made a mistake. But Walker is a pretty good player. Like he was a weird
Yes,
number one pick, but he's a pretty good player.
agreed. And you match him with Joshua Hines Allen, on the other side. That's pretty good 1-2 punch right there. That's, quarterbacks like Josh Allen, who like to leave the pocket and just be able to outrun guys, aren't going to necessarily be able to just outrun them anymore.
Yeah. I did write a couple of matchup stats down for you guys. The Jaguars have been killed by deep shots in the first couple of weeks. So maybe this is a
Really?
game for Josh to go deep to Shakir.
I'd be for that.
And
That
they're also
means
third
MBS is
on
gonna
third
be more
downs.
Really?
Yeah, the defense is.
Now, they played Miami week 1, and they led 17-3 and had to put the game away. Travis,
And then there was a fumble.
Travis Etienne,
Fumbled at the goal line. Yep.
yeah, at the goal line, and then Miami'd and came back and with 14 quick points and won. But they haven't scored the ball well at all this year. I don't like it's weird. Like I think they're trying to figure out who their number one is in real time between Gabe Davis,
It's
Brian
Brian
Thomas.
It's Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas.
I think I think they're just like, for whatever reason, they're just not like using him like that. They're like just not ready to commit to him, and I don't understand why. He is so good at football.
Week 1, they used him a lot in week 1 against Ramsey. Ramsey's just not the guy he once was. I don't know why they didn't use him more in week 2. The problem with the Jaguars is whenever you watch them, you're like, God, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be better than this.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's bad. It's just he was the prince who was promised, and he's all right. He's like, the 12th best quarterback in the league or something, but it always feels like he should be better than this. Like, and that's the frustration, I think, with the Jaguars.
Based on
now, you said
based on the expectations and where he is now as a player, would you consider him a bust?
No, because they still got an above-average quarterback out of the deal. Like if you get an above-average quarterback out of the number 1 pick, that's good. The number 1 pick doesn't have to be a superstar Hall of Famer to not be a bust.
What were you gonna say, Casey?
I was going to ask him so you said he was like right around the 12th best quarterback in the league. Is that by your opinion or is that by your numbers?
Sort of by numbers, but also sort of by opinion. I don't know. Maybe he's more like 10th. Like the point is, whenever you talk to guys who watch, who are more scouting oriented, they feel like Lawrence is better than his numbers have been. There's always this feeling like he's better than this. Like the natural talent is stronger than what we've actually seen on the field as far as the production. So, I mean, I think that's the most frustrating thing. That's the most frustrating thing about the Jaguars. For Jaguars fans, it must be pretty frustrating because he's not a bust, right? They paid him, and they were right to do so. He is absolutely a quarterback that you win because of, and yet he's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. There was this feeling, he wasn't going to be Allen as far as the athleticism, but that he was going to be like Marino or something, and it's just not. Or Joe Burrow, and he's not Joe Burrow.
Right. So I'm a Syracuse fan, lived in Central New York my whole life. And I got to watch him at Clemson come to Syracuse. I got to watch us beat Clemson a couple of times in the Dome. And I said it back then. I was like, I can see it. Like, I see the talent. Like, I see him make these throws. I see him evade these sacks. He was running, 60-yard runs like it was nothing. But I was like, there's just something about him. I was like, it's just like, and I couldn't ever put my thumb on it. And it seems like that has carried over into the NFL. I see it. Like,
yeah, and it's
like
not.
it's right there. Like
It's not like he's
it's like he just doesn't do it.
It's not like there's processing issues. It's not like there's pre-snap. No one says, "Oh, Trevor Lawrence doesn't know what he's doing pre-snap." Like he's always, by people who are scouting oriented, he's always rated higher than what his actual production is.
I think that's the big struggle with people when they do these, quarterback rankings. Who's number 1, 2, 3? Obviously, Mahomes is number 1, but then who's like basically 2 through 4, and then you get to like I've had these discussions with friends, and like I'm like we can go, pick the hairs 1 through 5. Once you get 6 through 10, it's kind of like you can make an argument for anybody, and
any ranking is usually like that, right? It's always 6 to 10 are always closer than 1 through 5, right? It's just the curve goes like this. It's like draft picks, right? Like especially not even in football as much as like in the NBA. Like the difference between the pick 1 and pick 2 is a lot larger than the difference between pick 9 and pick 10, and so on.
Right. I mean, but whenever we get to like number 10, I always want to put Lawrence there because of that ability that we're talking about. He just doesn't put it on the field. Like, and it's
wonder if like one year there's going to be a year where it all clicks, and maybe having Brian Thomas helps that happen.
Right. Agreed. That might just be the key to unlocking it, is Brian Thomas and getting Evan Ingram back.
I don't know what Ingram's health is.
The better it is.
Is he playing this week?
I guess I doubt he plays this week. I think he's like kind of day to day, but probably more like actually like week to week type of deal. I mean, when I saw that he rolled his ankle in pregame warmups, I'm like, how? That's just such a terrible thing. Like you go through all this, game prep, all week, and then you get to the day and you're really implementing and cementing everything in, and then he's hurt. And it's like, what do you do? I'm not surprised that they lost last week. He's a big part of their offense. He led their team in I want to say touchdowns and catches last year. He was right up there in yards too. Like he was the catalyst that made their offense click last year, and Lawrence's favorite target. So without him, that's going to be a big key for the Bills, is to be able to focus more on the outside guys.
I will say that I am not a believer in the bet on which team is desperate idea, but it's pretty clear the desperate team in this game is Jacksonville. They do not want to start 0-3.
No, that's a death sentence.
Definitely not. Hey, we're getting close here. I wanted to ask you one thing really quick. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, Aaron. If you had to pick a winner between Bills and Jets, who are you taking?
Between the Bills and the Jets.
I'm sorry. Jaguars. I don't know why.
I would take the Bills. I mean, I would take the Bills against the Jags. I'd take the Bills against the Jets too, by the way. I mean, the Bills are also at home, so they have the home field advantage.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not a believer in the idea of which team is more desperate, because the Jags are more desperate, but the Bills are better. I mean, despite the injuries, Bernard and Teron Johnson still not being able to play, and I do think the Bills are the better team.
So, okay, before you get out of here, Ronnie, I'm sorry, I got to ask, what makes you a non-believer in the desperation aspect?
I just feel like these guys are professionals, and if you've made it to the NFL level, especially if you're a top team, like you're pumped for every game, and especially that the way that the NFL works. Baseball, you've got to keep an even keel because you got to go out there tomorrow and do it again. With the NFL, you can pump yourself up for 6 days. And then that 7th day comes, well, 8th day in this case, because it's a Monday night game. But then you're like hyped. And I just feel like these guys are all hyped, like on both sides. So one team may be desperate, but the other team is pretty hyped up. And they, they're trying pretty hard too. So I guess I just feel kind of like everyone in the NFL is pretty much trying their hardest, unless you're, 2-12 or something.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Hey, really quick, let everybody know what's going on with you, where they can find you, and
Yeah, everything's at FTN Fantasy. I mean, I write for ESPN2 as well, but FTN Fantasy is where you find all the DVOA stuff. So get a subscription to ftnfantasy.com. We have the Stats Hub. It's amazing. We are going to have like DVOA updated during the season for charting categories. So you'll be able to do like, for example, I can tell you that Derek Carr is the only quarterback in the league with positive passing DVOA under pressure, because we have DVOA under pressure now. We used to not have that until the end of the season. So you get all that with a subscription, plus all of our DFS optimizers and all of our fantasy projections and all of our betting tools. And it's just a ton of stuff at ftnfantasy.com. And the FTN Fantasy DVOA page has a bunch of content by me and Brian Knowles and some other people, and we're constantly updating it with content.
It's an awesome site. You definitely check it out and subscribe to that. Hey, Aaron, we appreciate you coming on. Hope the best for you, and have a great weekend of football. And
yeah, thanks as always for having me on, guys. Good luck to the Bills on Monday night, and enjoy tonight's game.
Thank you. Have a good one, man.
All right.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
I want to go back really quick to what he was saying about the desperation thing, and it kind of reminded me. I do agree with him actually on that, because it's difficult for me to understand that a player or a team would be like, oh, well, crap, we're 0-2. We should probably play this week. I just can't. I don't think that mentality exists for professional athletes. You know what I mean?
I mean, yes, but then like you think about it in like regular life, like losing your job, something that you and I in our friendship, that's happened to both of us multiple times, in one circumstance or another. And you get desperate, and all of a sudden you're like, nose of the grindstone. You may have been giving 100% before, but now like every waking moment, they're grinding tape. They're, doing, the extra rep, they're doing this and that to where, it's the desperation, like obviously leads to the motivation. And I mean, I've done it. Like I feel, playing sports where like my team has been bad and I'm like, all right, we have to do something. Like it's literally now or never. We're not going to make the playoffs. Like it's just kind of like a mentality thing to where like, all right, the mentality just shifts to where like, all right, we just started the season. We'll be okay, to where like, all right, now shit has not gone well. We got to really pick things up and go for it now. Like no more mistakes, like no more games. I don't know. Like I believe in it, but I don't, I guess.
I think there's a difference between an 0-2 team who's just not a good team versus an 0-2 team that is a good team, and for whatever reason they're not playing well and they haven't been able to scrape the wins together. There's a couple more things I want to kind of touch a little bit more on the whole 0-2 thing here in a second, and then actually Mike asked a question in the comments that I want to ask you and get your take on that. But before we do, hopefully Mike is ready, because we need to hear from our sponsors before we move forward. So let's get that going.
Hey, this is John from Game On Video Games and Sports Memorabilia. We are Rochester's premier trading card store. We have a wide selection of trading cards, autographs, and memorabilia. We also do autograph and celebrity appearances in the store. So if you're looking for the perfect gift for yourself, relative that doesn't like the Bills, or for a friend, come down and check us out at our Rochester location, 2670 Dewey Avenue, or our Hamburg location at 1 Buffalo Street. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Really quick, before we continue on with those things I wanted to touch on, Casey, tell us a little bit about your experience at Game On Sports Memorabilia the other day.
Oh, yeah. So the reason why we didn't have a show on Monday is because Mike and I were invited out to the Hamburg store by John to go to a meet and greet to meet Austin Johnson, Bills defensive tackle this year. Really cool dude. Mike knows we shared a lot of laughs. We introduced each other to a couple of new things, and I think he's gonna share it with the rest of the team. If I can't say what those things were, but it's enjoyable. But it was really cool. It was really cool to Mike and I had only been to the Rochester location. It was really cool to go to the Greece one, into the Hamburg one, and just see all the different kind of stuff he has out there. I mean, if I was rich, I would just my house would be John's store. You know, that's a quote from Mike. He's like, if I had money, my house would just be John's store. He has everything. And being a Q's fan, I mean, he has Syracuse stuff. He has stuff from your favorite movie. I mean, it's. I truly do feel like a kid in a candy shop going there. It's so much fun. I encourage everybody to check out his store, either of them.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. One of these days I'll make it out that direction and be able to go. So let's jump back to the 0-2 thing. When a team goes 0-2, we always see and hear about when an 0-2 team, when a team goes 0-2, there's only this percentage of 0-2 teams ever make the playoffs. I think that's one of the most overrated stats in football because most of those teams are 0-2. They're 0-2 for a reason. So naturally, very few of them are going to make the playoffs. But there's quite a few examples where 0-2 teams did make it because they're a good football team. Good football teams can come out of that. So I kind of want to get your take on that as far as what you think about 0-2 teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think are a good team. They might be in trouble only because of the division and the AFC as a whole. But do you think this is an 0-2 team that can bounce back?
No, because to go to Mike's question about their secondary being banged up, yeah, they've lost their number one corner to IR, and I think also their second. Now they do have Syracuse alum Andre Sisco back there. You know, he's a very, very good safety in this league. And they do have a fantastic linebacker in Foyce Luakan, who we talked about earlier. I've never, like we talked about with Trevor Lawrence, I've never been a fan. He could never put it together in college. Like, he was never perfect. He had all the intangibles, and he was close enough to perfect. But everybody
he didn't win a national championship.
Yeah, but
played a couple of them.
Well, look at what he had on on those teams.
Oh, I know.
You know, I mean that, and those rosters were littered with NFL product.
Yeah, so Alabama.
Right, exactly. But again, how often have we said Alabama's won championships because of their quarterback? You know, not very often. You know, Jalen Hurts and Tua, and other than those guys, like it was never because of their quarterback. It was because they had Nick Saban and NFL talent up and down the roster, 1 through 3 on every position on the depth chart. But I'm just not a Trevor Lawrence fan. Gabe Davis, I just don't think is a game-changing wide receiver enough to upgrade Trevor Lawrence to make him that much better. And I think Trevor Lawrence does it's the same case for Trevor Lawrence for Gabe Davis. Now, the catalyst, like we were talking about right before Aaron got off, is Ryan Thomas. He's so goddamn good at football. He's so good. So if he turns into an absolute stud, then yes, then they can definitely take a step forward. But they got to get healthy on the boundary on defense, and they really need Brian Thomas to become a monster in this league.
So based on what you just said, do you think Lawrence would have been better off in another location, or is it more about the Jacksonville Jaguars just haven't put enough around him for him to develop into that elite quarterback he was expected to be?
I mean, the situation would depend on what situation, because there's worse situations he could be in. He could be in Carolina. Yeah, he could be in Carolina.
Yeah.
He could also be in Chicago. Imagine if Chicago had Trevor Lawrence. They would be what we thought they were going to be, entering the season with Caleb Williams. Which, by the way, I think Caleb Williams the same thing as I thought of Trevor Lawrence. I just want to put that out there on the record, so in 3 years, everybody's like, oh, why isn't he this amazing? So I can be like, told you so.
Yeah, you and I both talked about that. When we went through the draft, I was saying that Drake May was the better quarterback, the number one quarter should have been the number one quarterback in this draft. I hate that he went to the Patriots because now I can't root for him to be that. But yeah, I'm with you. There's just something about Caleb Williams. Is the physical talent there? Yeah. I question the it stuff. You know what I mean? Does he have the heart to do what he needs to do? Like Josh Allen, we know, we've all heard the stories. We've seen the commercials now, the Gatorade commercials that he talks about.
Right.
I sent 1,000 letters out. I did this. I did that. When he came into the league, he was out there with Palmer and doing all of those things in the summer. And I'm not saying Caleb Williams isn't doing any of that because I haven't heard that though. But it just seems like he came into this league with his own mentality of, I'm Caleb Williams. I got this. Even that little piece, that little video clip of him and C.J. Stroud at the end of the game, did you see that?
Yeah.
Stroud was basically trying to, hey, let me give you some advice. Let me, lift you up, encourage you. It's like Caleb Williams wanted nothing to do with him.
I mean, I get it on both sides. If Patrick Mahomes and or Josh Allen are giving him that advice, I bet you he sits there and listens. But C.J. Stroud being in the league for 1 year, I could see, I see where he's like, you've been in the league for a year. But
he's accomplished more than Caleb has.
Agreed. But that's the whole thing is no matter, growing up as a kid, I was always told if you want to get better at sports, play against guys that are older and better than you.
Yeah.
So so that's the way you can learn their advice, just learn the game a different, from people that are just better than you. And at this point, C.J. Stroud is better than you. So yes, Caleb Williams should be taking any and all advice he can get from NFL quarterbacks that are better than him. I also don't think C.J. Stroud has earned that credibility yet in order to be giving out advice like that to, other quarterbacks because he is still so young in the league. Is he fantastic? Yes. We have also seen 1-2 year hit wonders and then watch them plummet. So I'm not ready to call C.J. Stroud, the next, Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But I think he's absolutely phenomenal right now. I just think both of them need to stay in their lane. C.J. Stroud, maybe he shouldn't have done that, but since he did, Caleb Williams still should have listened.
I think it says a little bit about C.J. Stroud's leadership that because he is young and he knows he's young, but he's still willing and has that courage to put himself out there and say, hey, let me help this guy out. To me, that speaks to leadership. That speaks to a willingness to speak up, even if he is the young guy. And I kind of liken that a little bit to what we're hearing with Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen to death, and I do think he's been a leader of this team for a while now. But I keep hearing a lot of he's taken that next step this year. He's now the leader of this team, and he's now taking that role on, almost making it sound like he really was kind of a little, I don't know. I know I'm the leader of this team, but then there's these other personalities that maybe I should just let them. And now he's not doing that. So for C.J. Stroud to be that guy this early in his career, I think it's kudos to him.
Yeah, but there's always different ways to lead. I mean,
true.
Josh was always a lead by example guy. He was always the best player on the football team. So he expected everybody else to elevate to his level. And that was his way to lead, was to motivate guys by playing well so they would play better. Diggs and Von Miller were vocal leaders. Those kind of guys, Poyer, Hyde, they were the vocal leaders to get everybody's juices pumping, before the game. Now Josh is taking on that role because none of those guys are there. He is truly the veteran on this team now. Mm-hmm. He is one of the longest tenured, him, Deion Dawkins, Dawson Knox, those kind of guys. So I'm not surprised. I mean, personally, I feel bad talking about myself a lot. I was never a vocal guy. It was kind of the same as Josh, lead by example. Just go out, do your thing, do it well, and hope other people play, would raise their level of play to mine. And, just try to motivate that way. I was never a rah-rah guy. In fact, I always thought it was I kind of hated it. I always thought it was kind of cringy. I could never, even to this day, I could never get myself to try to pump up a crowd or something. I just would just feel like an idiot. I don't know. Maybe that's just a self-conscious thing or what. Maybe I need to see a therapist. But
well, I think that goes without saying, but
well, yeah, I am a Bills and
Hey,
Syracuse fan. Which,
uh,
real quick, before we go to the next subject, so our one rebuttal, which it's a pretty big one, seeing as how like we're just a couple of dummies talking football. You want to know who said that Caleb Williams is going to be really, really good in the league? Austin Johnson. And I mean, the dude played a half a game against him in the preseason, and that was a game that Caleb Williams looked the best. But he said he has everything. He just said he was absolutely phenomenal, and that he just needs to figure it out, like you were talking about.
yeah, I would agree. I think the skill that is there, the skill set, the talent and stuff. I'm not sold on it. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I mean, I don't know, but like I said, I would have gone Drake May over Williams, and May maybe
Jaden
not
Daniels.
good. You gonna elaborate?
No. Going back to we had our picks during draft season. You had Drake May. We were both out on Caleb Williams, and I was the one saying Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback. And so far this year, I mean, he's the best so far. I know it's a 2-week sample size, but he won a game last week without having to score any touchdowns. He's the only rookie quarterback this year with any touchdowns. Now, granted, there's not a single rookie quarterback with a passing touchdown, but hey, he's got his team at the top of the division, so
yeah,
it's something.
Let's go back to the Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. conversation. The two of them have a combined 12 receptions, 6 apiece. It's about, I think, 245-ish yards or something like that total between them. 246. Thomas has a touchdown. Davis does not. Davis has the most targets, though, at 10. So not – okay, I'm not going to be mean. But, I think they are –
Say it.
I'm just going to say the 60% catch rate is kind of what you would expect from Gabe Davis, right?
We also haven't seen all 10 of those reps, though. We don't know how many of those passes were in the dirt or thrown behind him or what. And I apologize. There's 2 people's cars are going off right now across the street.
Yeah, I think that not having Evan Ingram for this game on Monday, if he is in fact out, I think it's going to be a huge issue, because if the Bills can and are able to just focus on the outside guys, then I think that gives them a massive advantage over not having to worry about somebody at the tight end, especially considering we got Dorian Williams and Balen Spector starting. Not to knock either one of them. They played well last week, had a couple of bumps and bruises along the way, but they played well. But against a tight end like Evan Ingram, I would be a little leery of that. So if he's out, that's going to be huge.
Absolutely. Sorry. I'm just trying to deal with – now there's only one car going off, but it's still going off, and it sounds pretty close. Anyway, but yeah, Evan Ingram, he's I'd be surprised if he plays this weekend. I mean, I think he's so important to their offense. I think they're going to want to play it careful with him. Like I said earlier, I think he led the team, and I know he led the team in touchdowns. I think he led the team receptions last year, and was definitely in top 2-3 in yards. So I think him going out, I think that would be a reason why Gabe has seen the most uptick in target. I mean, he's probably playing more of the safety valve guy, and Brian Thomas is such a good down the field threat that they don't have to use Gabe Davis in that way. They can utilize him in his experience more and just trying to find the open zone and be the easy target for him.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how they're going to use Christian Kirk this game, because he's hardly at all been used, and they gave him a boatload of money a couple years ago, and I don't know. The Jaguars are so confusing to me, man. I just hope we don't lose.
Well, So a few little tidbits. Bills and Jags have played each other 19 times. The first meeting was in 1996. Who was our starting quarterback?
Ronnie, I was one. It might not have even been one. It depends on during the season the game was
Oh
played.
man, you got. Okay, this is just a personal thing for me. If you're a fan of a team, you've got to learn the history. You just have to. It's like a prerequisite to be a fan. Now,
Ronnie,
it was
I can't know
starting
every
quarterback.
tidbit.
The starting quarterback was Jim Kelly. Believe it or not,
that was gonna be
1996.
my guess.
The first matchup was a wild card game, in which Jacksonville beat them pretty handily too, if I remember correctly. Actually, no, I think it was like 24-20. But that was Jim Kelly's last career game.
Really?
So I just thought that was kind of interesting that here we are. The very first time they ever played Jacksonville was also Jim Kelly's last game in the NFL. He threw one touchdown, which went to Thurman Thomas, and the Jacksonville holds the all-time series lead 10-9. So Buffalo can get it to 500 with this one and even up the score there.
Nice. I'm not going to give out who I think is going to win because I'm going to save that for Monday. Since we got an actual pregame show we get to do.
Oh, you want to do the score on Monday?
Yeah.
For predictions? Okay, we'll hold off for that. All right, well, I got to throw you on the spot and myself because I forgot to look this up. But we need to do a primetime picks, though, since we do have a game tonight.
Okay. Let's do this.
All right. I need to pull the schedule really quick because I don't even remember other than tonight's
I
game.
know tonight and the 2 Monday night games. So I'll start with tonight. I'm going to take
the over-under is 39.5. Jets are favored by 6.5.
Yeah, it gave the Jets like 13 points or something.
Yeah.
Or the Patriots like 13 points. I'm going to take the Patriots with the points, but I'm going to take the Jets money line. So I think the Jets are going to win outright, but I think the Patriots are going to win with the points. I mean, that 6.5 is a big spread, and neither of these teams, in my opinion, are like amazing. So it's going to be a low scoring battle.
Yeah, and that's the over-under bears that out too at 39.5.
Right.
Mike, are you ready to jump in here and do your primetime picks as well? All right, get in here, man. I'm going to take the the Jets. I'm taking the Jets straight up on this one. I think it's hard to say that they have the better quarterbacks. I really don't know. Historically, yes, obviously Aaron Rodgers is better than Brissett, but at this point in Rodgers' career, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. But I'm still going to go with the Jets on this one. So, yeah, Mike, who are you taking?
Hearing Casey and Aaron talk about the Patriots earlier and when they need to get this, well, I think they're more likely to get this win against the Jets tonight than later in the year. So I've been on the fence with this, but I'm going to go with the Patriots winning tonight.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so we're not clean the sweep across the board.
No.
Chiefs Falcons Sunday night. I think this one's going to be a clean sweep across the board. I'll take the Chiefs. I'll take the Chiefs.
Go ahead, Kate, Mike.
Yeah.
Why I keep doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of the games, like I said, tonight's game was hard for me. The rest of the games are easy, and yeah, Chiefs over the Falcons.
I'll be the different one. Why not? I'll go out on a limb. I'm going to take the Falcons. I think the Chiefs are still working through some things. They haven't been playing particularly well. Yes, they found ways to win. The Chiefs tend to start things off kind of slow the last couple of years anyways. And I feel like the Falcons win on Monday night, and the way they won that game sparked something. Maybe that was kind of the thing that they needed to get rolling. So I'm going to take the Falcons on that one. Where's the game at? Is it Atlanta?
I was going to ask that.
It's Atlanta. So yeah, I'll go and be the
Yeah.
different guy on this one and take the Falcons.
All right.
It
I don't
almost
mind it.
changes my mind. I don't either. It almost changes my mind, Atlanta playing at home. But it's hard for me. It's just hard for me to choose against the Chiefs.
It is. I agree. Absolutely. It is. But I will, because both of you went with the Chiefs, I'm going to be the odd guy on this one. All right. And then
All right.
Washington is at
Commanders.
Cincinnati. Mike, I'll let you pick this one first.
Geez, the Bengals, they just lost to the Chiefs by 1. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost to the Patriots the week before that. I'm saying Bengals bounce back against the Commanders.
Game's in Cincinnati, too.
Yeah.
I'm going to
They
go with
must.
you on this one as well. I think I'm going to take Cincinnati.
Mhm.
Casey,
one
are
for
you
Casey.
gonna do right by your wife or no?
Jaden
My
Daniels.
wife has been since 6:15 today. If this is the 30 seconds that she is awake, I'm going to be so upset because I'm going to take the Bengals.
It's kind of
Just for the same reasons. If they had pulled out one of the 2 wins, I could see them, slipping up into the Commanders. But the Commanders, they're secondary. I mean, I've been able to watch both their games this year. Their secondary is so bad. I mean, they whiffed huge on the corner pick last year or 2 years ago in the draft on taking Forbes. I mean, it's like they need so much help on the back end of that defense. I know this is basically year 1 of a rebuild. They've got their quarterback. I truly think they do. They've got Scary Terry out there. Luke McCaffrey, he doesn't look too bad. But they've got Jonathan Allen and, I can't remember the other great defensive tackle's name there. But they traded away Montez Sweat. So they are just completely rebuilding the defense. And this is going to be the struggle year. And I won't be surprised when they're picking 3rd, 4th, 5th next year. And they're taking the best defensive end or corner in the draft. And I'm praying they take Travis Hunter.
Deron Payne, was that the other tackle?
Deron Payne. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So clean sweep for the Bengals. I think T. Higgins is potentially going to be playing in this game as well.
I won't be surprised if they keep him out one more week because the Commanders' defense is so bad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be because I really don't think they'll need him to win this game. I think they can just let Jamar. I think this is going to be a Jamar Chase go absolutely apeshit game.
That's possible. So that's our 3 of our 4 primetime picks. We'll pick the other one, the Bills and Jags. We'll do that one on Monday since we have our show Monday night. It'll be a true pregame. So, join us for that.
Mike? Real quick, what time do you want to start then? Do you want to start at 6:45, go to 7:15?
I think I was just assuming 6:30 Eastern time.
6:30 to 7?
I could do 6:30.
Or 7:15, whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll be back a little bit early on Monday morning, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah, Mike, Casey, you got anything, guys, you want to add?
I don't think so, man.
Screw the Dolphins. Go Bills.
Yeah.
Sorry, friends.
Screw the
Like
Dolphins.
always.
Screw them all. Go Bills. We'll see you guys on Monday.
Go Bills.